What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, afternoon. No matter where you are in the world, I'm Hassan Piker, and this is Hasan. Our broadcast coming to you live from not so sunny California, Los Angeles, folks. We're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and MBs are having a fantastic one. Today's a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. Today is the 5th day of the year, as a matter of fact. Only the 5th day of the year, even though it feels like it's going to be a long one. Only 360 more days like this to go, ladies and gentlemen. Only 360 more to go. It's January 5th. 2026. I hope everyone's having a fantastic one, regardless of all of the circumstances. What is this? Cayuga's top gal. I had to leave Venezuela because Maduro shot my parents at a protest. Look at this Israeli Nazi, sad because she lost her privilege. Kaya, shut up. Bro, this guy is literally a Mexican Nazi. Like, I'm sorry. And I don't mean like Nick Fuentes style Mexican-American Nazi. Like, this guy is straight up an obese Mexican Nazi. There is nothing I respect less. I'm sorry. Like, I think at least Asmongold is white. You know what I mean? So, like, his positions are at least, I mean, well, albeit still abhorrent, morally repugnant, kind of makes sense. Like, there is nothing I respect less than someone who is a white supremacist who is Mexican in Mexico. America will roll over your country in the same way that it did Venezuela, and you will get ass fucked with a bayonet, and you will sit there and you'll go, hold on, guys, you don't understand. I'm actually a white nationalist, as you get by a bayonet. It's just not, like, you're so irrelevant in this conversation. I'm sorry. You're a worthless person. And it's also hilarious that they're doing like standpoint epistemology here as well. The Groypers are going fucking full woke is right. It's just, you're a worthless, servile little worm that nobody really respects. Nobody in your movement actually respects you. You're not even like worthwhile as a token, honestly, to spend. You are a Mexican in Mexico that is LARPing for white nationalist, Christian fascist, neo-Nazi movements. You will never be remembered. You will be forgotten. You are nothing. And I think you know that you are nothing. And that's why you have to like hold on. At least when dumb fuck American hogs are like, oh, I love our pedophilic pro-Israel elites that are doing everything in their power to send people overseas to go blow up shit, kill people so that like Exxon's bottom line looks a little bit better on a chart so that we can fight against an imagined enemy. But at least like those guys are straight up on a team, right? Like they're playing team sports, right? You're not even in the same league. Like you're not even watching the NBA and saying you're a Boston Celtics fan. You literally are in an entirely separate league. Okay, you're in the Mexican league. What ultimately is his purpose? Like, no comprendo. His purpose is to make $35 a month, $35 fucking dollars a month off of getting like a viral clip, which, you know, you gotta make it how you can, right? Like, I'm not gonna hate on that. Who cares about that shit? Get the bag, king. But genuinely, the worst possible position to be in overall. At least like the hyper reactionary diaspora Venezuelans that seemingly a lot of people are frustrated by in Spain and everywhere else, where they're celebrating Venezuela being bombed and stuff. Like, at least they're still Venezuelan. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, in their minds they think like, oh, if Machado gets in, then my dad can go back to the country and we can, you know, go back to the media franchise that we owned or something. You know what I mean? We can have our grocery store chain again in operation, and we can like farm as much revenue as possible off the backs of poor Venezuelans. But for you, like, you are so far removed from this equation. Like, you're not even remotely close to the impact. As a matter of fact, the justification for this kind of militancy against Venezuela, the overriding of sovereignty of Venezuela, ironically enough, will inevitably come your way as well. And let me be very clear. If you think that a Tomahawk missile is going to make a distinction between your house because you're a white supremacist Twitter poster and any other house, you are delusional. Okay? It will not. A Tomahawk missile will wipe you off the fucking face of this planet regardless of your consistent advocacy for American imperialism and white supremacy in general. It's all good, though. It's not like our words have any kind of impact here, but maybe one day you will feel the impact of American imperialism, in the form of a Tomahawk missile coming in your direction. Hopefully you'll be able to fire off a couple extra tweets for another meager $26.67 in revenue that will go back to your family, who probably disowned you already a long time ago because they know that you are an obese Mexican white supremacist living in Mexico. Oh, wait, he's not obese, Lamau. That's the other Nazi. This one is very skinny and very brown. Oh, my mistake. There's two Mexican neo-Nazis on Twitter, and they both have like anime avatars and anime profiles. My mistake. This one is the frail one. Shit. I mistook the prominent neo-Nazis on Twitter for one another. You always got to have one like fat henchman and one skinny henchman, So this one's the frail one. A lot of people keep going back and forth on the timeline doing standpoint epistemology over the bodies and spaces of Venezuelans, right? They're talking about how like ruthless and cruel of a tyrant Maduro was. They're talking about how bad Maduro was in general, how he may or may not have stolen the last election, according to at least some of the people that were election watchers and things like that. And none of that is actually relevant because that's not the reason why America engaged in this action. And none of that's also relevant because we're talking about state action, right? State versus state illegal action. These are actions that took place that are completely and utterly illegal under international law. Not that international law has ever really mattered. Let's be real. International law only mattered as far as you could just justify American violations of international law by pointing to the initial suspected violation of international law, right? Like we get to go and dominate whoever the fuck we want to. We get to do whatever the fuck we want because we suspect the other side of violating international law. And in some instances, it does. Because in some instances, there are violations of international law. In some instances, you are actually going after like a despot, right? But the real reason is you're not actually going after a despot for some international police perspective, right? If there was a concept of international police, I believe they would probably go after America first, right? Because we are the ones who violate all the international laws because we are the ones who wrote it and we are the ones who actually utilize it in this incredibly cynical fashion. I mean, we'd be doing it to Israel. We would be doing it to the United States of America if there was like any sort of fucking ICC system that actually worked. Obviously, there isn't one. All of that stuff is completely ridiculous, right? All of that stuff is completely ridiculous. All that stuff is completely silly. This like demand for consistency, I find very strange, especially when at a time when like Donald Trump seemingly is not even remotely interested or remotely invested in upholding the standard of like liberalizing the world or fighting for liberal democracy or fighting for democracy in general. It's not. And Donald Trump is not even making this argument at all, which in some respects, I guess I appreciate, makes my job a little bit easier. However, unfortunately, if we're being totally real here, liberals are still seemingly making the argument that while Donald Trump is saying that he wants to do this for resource extraction, saying that this is illegal, saying that he has no plan or whatever for like what comes next, they still try to make it seem as though there is a plan out there. Or my favorite was what Chris Murphy did, which was once again complaining about Donald Trump's militancy, not on the virtues of anti-imperialism, anti-war, but instead complaining about Donald Trump's military action because it wasn't, it didn't go hard enough. Like we didn't actually implement a coup, like a successful coup, and we just like kind of left it hanging. I find that very funny. Oh yeah, this is a classic meme reborn. I know. I posted this on my Instagram as well. For those of you who were living under a rock until recently, a couple nights ago, the American government finally initiated a bombing campaign on Caracas, taking out anti-air defense systems and also taking out the entire electricity grid of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, as they went in with a bunch of helicopters. I believe it's like 150 aircraft total, and kidnapped the leader of Venezuela, right? A sovereign nation state. We kidnapped him and his wife in the dead of the night while he was in his pajamas before he was able to escape into his steel vault, apparently. And in the process, apparently, according to numerous sources at this point, upwards of 80 people died. There were a bunch of Cuban military as well that was in Maduro's personal security detail that died. I think it was like 32 there. And almost 40 Venezuelan soldiers died as well. And then the rest were civilians. Not that it matters, obviously, in the minds and hearts of the average American. It's just regular American cruelty. It's just a light day. The claims that the administration was making was that the Maduro government was actually engaging in this high-profile cocaine trafficking scheme alongside the FARC, the Marxist militancy in Colombia. Now, what's really interesting about that is if you know anything about Latin American history, especially as it pertains to American involvement in Latin American history, you know that it's actually the exact opposite, right? It's exactly the opposite of this, where it is the CIA that is facilitating narco trafficking that takes place in Latin America, and they do it with regular frequency. They do it with tremendous efficiency. They do it to control not only the flows of drugs, but also to fund for their, black ops and fundraise for their black ops, and also keep Latin American countries at bay with armed conflict. It's rarely the socialist or the Marxist groups that are playing a role in this, even though they can in certain instances. Of course, yes, the CIA and the Contras being one of the most notable, one of the most famous examples. You watch too many TV shows. I watch too many TV shows. That's interesting. I didn't realize that reading books was actually a substitute for TV shows, and instead people who watch Jack Ryan to develop an understanding of why America must intervene in other countries' businesses will come in here with Marvel movie style understandings of the world and accuse me of, watching too many TV shows. For every single person that thinks that this is actually going to be good for them in any way, shape, or form, if you're an American, if you're not American and you're celebrating these actions, I have no respect for you. If you're an American and you're celebrating these actions, I have no respect for you either. But at least you have, you have reason to feel like this is an action that was done for you. You're still stupid, but at least you're not as stupid as I don't know, some fucking European moron who's running around being like, no, you don't understand. This is actually something that needed to happen. I'm so glad that it took place. If you're an American, you're still brainwashed, but at least you're getting a fucking healthy flow of propaganda that makes you feel like anytime America actually engages in this sort of militancy, it somehow improves your material conditions when it very clearly doesn't. And maybe perhaps you are either too old to give a shit or too young to remember what the Iraq War was sold to Americans as and what it actually ended up turning into. And that's usually the issue with a lot of people's perspective on any kind of American militancy. It's always the same. Resource extraction is usually one of the primary goals here, and also ideological investment in fascism, or the Monroe Doctrine, or now they're calling it the Don Roe Doctrine. They want to ensure that their part of the hemisphere is completely kept under control and completely dominated and servile to American interests. Usually the people that are in the country end up suffering the most, but oftentimes they sell this concept as a good thing. In the past, they used to sell it as a great liberalization initiative, a great democratization initiative, whether it was a right-winger doing it or whether it was a liberal doing it, right? And yet now Donald Trump doesn't even do that. He doesn't even engage in that. He just straight up says it like it is. We're going to control Venezuela. And if they don't fucking play ball, we will keep pummeling. We will keep blowing your shit up. And for people who think that gas is going to get cheaper as a consequence of this, you genuinely have the brain of a worm. I hate to say this to you, but gas is not going to get cheaper as a consequence of this. Not only will it take many, many years to fully start the refinement process, even if we procure the 300 million barrels of oil in the world's largest natural reserve, the very fact that it's heavy crude and the very fact that there needs to be a tremendous amount of investment put in place to even build up this process, and the very fact that the current Venezuelan government is basically still the Maduro government without Maduro, makes things a lot more complicated. even though Maduro himself seemingly wanted to also play ball with American investment. You know, it's just not going to make the oil cheaper for you. In any case, it will probably it will be good. It will be beneficial in the long run for America's leverage against Canada, America's leverage against China. It'll be good for the American State Department and the American interests. It'll be good for American capital. It will not be good for you. Just as though the Iraq War was not good for you. The only thing that the Iraq War brought to you is maybe your cousin having his foot blown off by an IED and a lifetime of medical debt and crippling PTSD. And maybe for you personally, I guess if you did go out there, you got your high school sweetheart that you married early on get fucked by the neighbor, and then you came back to a broken home, and now you have to take care of someone else's child. Of course, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you look back at the ashes of Baghdad and you think to yourself, what was this for? And if the answer is, at least we got to spread democracy in Iraq, well, you're a fucking idiot, and it's probably better that you keep coping this way. But ultimately, your government hates you, and they're not exactly hiding that reality any longer, and yet you still hope that the government actually is doing this for you, because otherwise you would realize that the government is not doing this for you at all. They're doing it for someone else. They're doing it for someone else to make money, as a matter of fact.